Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of Form Check Friday. First things first, next week we have a very special episode. We're thinking about changing the format overall of Form Check Friday, and I think, and Dylan thinks, that we have a very exciting idea, so stay tuned to see just what that looks like. Moving on to today's episode, we're going to start it off with Colin from last week's episode. Is the thing on? There we go. All right, so Colin's doing some bench press here, and like a lot of the comments mentioned, yeah, your butt is coming up a little bit. To me, it looks like, again, touch and go reps were a little bit rushed in the bottom position, so a little bit more control, a little lighter touch, perhaps some pauses on the chest would go a long ways. And another thing that looks very apparent as you unrack the bar, and before because when you come down, the plates kind of cover the shoulder joint, it's hard to kind of see what's going on. But before you start your descent, I see that the shoulders are really not depressed at all. Now this is something that I see across the board in bench, squat, deadlift. People have troubles getting their shoulder blades depressed. So we have a couple of basic movements of the shoulder blades just for these intents and purposes. We have retraction, we have protraction, which is moving them towards away from the midline of the body. We have elevation, which is moving the shoulder blades up or shrugging. We have depression, which is moving the shoulder blades down. Depression is what we want, and the thing that's missing here. So we need those shoulder blades. They look like they're probably pulled back pretty well, retracted, but we need more depression in order to kind of pop that chest up, sink the shoulders into a bit of better position. So shoulder blade depression, keep your butt on the bench, and let's slow down that touch, make it a little bit lighter, a little bit more controlled, maybe work on some pauses. Hopefully that helps, buddy. Our next video submission comes from Thomas. Now, Thomas asks about scapular or shoulder blade retraction on his bench press. So this is kind of an interesting string of events. Random number generator brought us here. So, Thomas, now it looks like for a quick second there, you did exactly what I'm going to tell you to do, and that is to use your legs more. It looks like in between maybe the first and second rep, not sure exactly where it was, but somewhere early in your set, you actually took the time to press more with your legs, and it popped you up onto your shoulders. And that's exactly one of the ways, or exactly the way that I would recommend working on getting a better arch, shoulder depression, shoulder retraction, is pushing with your legs the whole time. I want you to think about driving yourself back up the bench, pushing your butt towards your head, and that should help lift the chest up, keep the pressure of your upper body on your traps, and once you've stuffed the shoulder blades back, that pressure of the arch bearing down on your shoulders should help to reinforce and maintain that arch. In terms of shoulder tuck, you asked specifically about tucking your elbow tuck. You asked specifically about that. It looks like you're doing a good job. I would maybe widen your grip if you can. Looks like you have very long arms, and it might be comfortable and doable and beneficial for you to go to like a max legal or close to max legal width, meaning first finger on the rings, which are 81 centimeters apart. So yeah, those are the biggest two things are going to be use your legs better, maybe widen that grip, and the elbow tuck that you're doing looks good. Basically, we just want stacked joints. We want the elbow under the wrist, directly under the bar. We don't want to see the elbow out in front. We don't want to see the elbow behind. We want nice straight angles, stacked joints. Our next video submission comes from Geronimo. Now Geronimo's doing some deadlifts. This is a very high rep set, so kind of hard to tell what exactly would be breaking down under fatigue or under heavy load. Perhaps as we get more towards the end of the set, we can start to see some breakdown. There's a couple things that I'm noticing here. Number one, you're super narrow. I would consider widening your stance just so that the outsides of your knees and your shins are kind of rubbing with the arms a little bit. I think it's going to give you a bit of a wider base of support. It's going to allow you to potentially get into a bit of a better position. So that leads into one of the other things here, which it looks like the back is rounding a little bit. Now it's really hard to tell from this angle, but I've kind of looked at a lot of these videos now, and I can generally tell even from the front when somebody's starting to lose their back. There's a little bit of an extra, there's extra time taken at lockout, which is usually indicative of needing to flatten the back out. Now, one of the reasons that you may be losing your back is that we're not able to achieve a nice neutral spinal position off the floor because we're running into the legs and the hips are essentially running out of room. By widening the stance a little bit, perhaps externally rotating the hip a little bit, externally rotating the femur at the hip a little bit, it might allow you to create a little bit more room in that hip to get that back flatter, be able to produce a nice flat back angle so that you can start with a better position. Now, if you can start with a better position, we're gonna have a better lockout. It's probably gonna feel a little tougher off the floor at first, but give that a try and let me know how it goes, man. Our next video submission comes from Diwas. Now, Diwas is doing some squats here. This is a relatively heavy double. He said he was about 2 weeks out from his meet, and he notices that his hips are kind of doing a bit of a funkiness, a bit of a funky little dance there, especially noticeable on the second rep. Now, I think the biggest reason that we're getting this is if you watch the bar and the position of the bar as he comes out of the bottom, we're in a pretty high bar position and a relatively high bar squat. And I think perhaps moving that bar down your back ½ inch, very, very small amount, 2-3 centimeters, is probably gonna suffice. But I would try a tiny bit of a lower bar position to see if that allows you to lock your back in a little bit better. It looks like the bar's kind of rolling you forward out of the bottom. You're having to catch the bar, retighten your back, and that's why we're getting the little wiggly wobbliness out of the bottom. Because it's right at the sticking point. It's right at the point where, you know, if you're loose, we're going to be seeing those kinds of things. And I think it's less a result of how you're squatting and more a result of how you're holding the bar. So number one, I would try a lower bar position, see if that helps. And number two, if the lower bar position feels terrible and that's not the right thing, then what I'd like you to do is work on keeping your upper back tighter. Make sure that we don't get a lapse of tightness in the upper back as you sit into the bottom position of the squat. A lot of times when we loosen up to kind of hit depth, it's a sort of a necessary evil for most people. We need to ensure that a lot of our trunk stays tight. So we loosen through the hips, we get that little bit of a rebound, enough to hit depth, but we make sure we keep the upper body, the trunk, the bar, and all the muscles that the bar is sort of locked in by very, very tight. Now, if we can do that, we won't see that lapse in tightness and that little wiggle wobble on the way up where that bar pulls you forward and you have to kind of catch it. And our final video submission that I'll be reviewing, critiquing today, is coming from Sharif. Now, Sharif is self-taught. He's been lifting for a number of years and just wanted us to check out his squat. So first off, Sharif, your squat looks fantastic. I would not change a single thing, mechanically speaking, about your squat. It looks comfortable. It looks well paced. It looks like you have the timing down. The bar's moving well. You're not getting, you know, bent out of shape or anything like that. But one thing that I think would be useful for you to think about or cue yourself to do during the squat is to work on keeping the upper back tighter out of the hole. Very much like we just talked about with Diwas, you're getting just a tiny little bit pulled forward. Now it's very, very slight, so I wouldn't change anything big, but what I would do is try to put a little bit more focus into keeping those shoulder blades glued in to the rest of the system, to the rib cage, and making sure that we're staying very, very tight through the trunk and not allowing that little bit of a tip forward out of the bottom. Because as we fatigue, as the weight gets heavier, that tip's gonna become more and more pronounced, and it might lead to missing a lift on a technical basis rather than allowing you to get to where you're actually missing a lift based on strength. So honestly, very, very good squats. I wouldn't change anything major. I would just try to put a little bit of extra focus into keeping the upper back tight, not allowing that bar to kind of pull you forward out of the bottom. And our last video today is gonna come from Anton. And Anton, I don't even know what Anton's doing. I haven't looked at the video yet. This one is for you guys, so please, in the comments below, leave your constructive criticism. Most people have been really great so far. We haven't seen too many people being unnecessarily cruel about people's lifts or anything like that. So I feel pretty confident leaving Anton's lift up here for you guys to take a look at. Let us know what you think. And Anton, I will get to your video first thing in our next episode of Form Check Friday. I want to take a quick second and just let everybody know that I've had a number of people asking me about a promo code for Canadian Protein. If you're a first-time order on Canadian Protein, use the code BRYCE10. You get 10% off your order. That's about it. Thanks for tuning in, guys. We will see you in the next one. Hit that like button if you liked it. Subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll be back next Friday with some very exciting form checking.